He was born into the Mafia. His father was a don, his godfather was a killer, and his destiny was written before he could walk. By his teenage years, he already knew how to shoot a gun. By 30, he was one of the most feared men in Sicily. And by 40, he was a power at the top of Cosa Nostra, a network built on blood, bombs, and fear. Matteo Messina Denaro, he wasn't just a gangster. He was the bridge between old school violence and modern day business. One hand held the gun and the other signed contracts for wind farms, shops, real estate deals. When the police came for him, he vanished. For 3 decades, no one could find this man. But in the end, it wasn't bullets or bravery that caught him. It was cancer. This is how the last godfather of Cosa Nostra finally fell. Matteo Messina Denaro. He was born April 26, 1962, in the quiet town of Castelvetrano. His father, Francesco Don Ciccio Messina Denaro, he controlled the local mafia clan. Even Matteo's baptism godfather was a mobster. By 14, he could handle a gun. By his 20s, he was feared for his temper and his taste for expensive cars, designer clothes, and women. People called him Diabolique, after a famous Italian comic book thief, and Usiku, the skinny one, he was skinny. Behind the flash, he was a killer. He once bragged that he could feel a symmetry with the people that he had killed. His violence made him useful to Salvatore Totorina, the boss of bosses from Corleone. Rena had groomed him as a protege, and by the early 1990s, Matteo was deep inside the mafia's war with the Italian state, the bloodiest chapter in modern Italy. 1992, Italy was still dealing with the Maxi trial, where hundreds of mobsters were sentenced. 2 judges led that fight, Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino. To the mafia, they had to be silenced. Matteo helped to plan both assassinations. The courts later convicted him for involvement in both. On May 23, 1992, a highway near Palermo exploded, the Capaci bombing. It killed Falcone, his wife, and 3 bodyguards. Less than 2 months later, July 19th, another bomb ripped through Via D'Amelio. It killed Borsellino and 5 officers. Italy was in shock. The government declared war on the mafia. Rena answered with more terror, and Matteo Messina Denaro, he was one of the masterminds. In 1993, Cosa Nostra, they bombed Florence, Milan, and Rome. The bombs hit ordinary people and cultural sites. 5 died in Florence, 5 in Milan, and churches in Rome were torn apart. He was later convicted in absentia for directing those mainland attacks. The most horrifying act, I think it came that same period. A 12-year-old boy, Giuseppe Di Matteo, he was kidnapped because his father had cooperated with police. For 779 days, the child was moved from house to house, chained, terrified. When the mafia got tired of waiting, they strangled him and dissolved his body in acid. Investigators, they later tied that murder to Messina Denaro's orders. By 1994, he was one of the most wanted men in Italy, and then he disappeared. For 30 years, he lived like a ghost. No phones, no selfies, no voice recordings. He communicated through pizzini, tiny folded notes that are passed by hand using codename Alessio. Rumors said he had fled to Brazil or that he had changed his face with surgery, but the truth is that he never left Sicily. He hid among his own people, protected by silence. While on the run, he built a quiet empire. He poured dirty money into wind farms, supermarkets, construction, real estate. Prosecutors called it a middle-class mafia. Doctors, lawyers, and businessmen, they were moving money for the boss. Police raided hundreds of homes, arrested cousins, friends, girlfriends, seized huge assets, but they still couldn't find him. And yet, the man supposedly hiding in caves was living comfortably. When the police finally reached his apartment, they found designer suits, perfumes, a well-stocked fridge, and sex pills. He still loved his life. He still lived like a boss. In the end, what betrayed him wasn't greed, it was illness. In 2022, investigators intercepted chatter about a relative receiving chemotherapy. They started checking medical databases for men his age being treated in Sicily. One name kept popping up, Andrea Bonafede. The identity, it didn't add up. So on January 16, 2023, that patient arrived at the private La Maddalena clinic in Palermo for a routine chemo session. He wore a white cap, Ray-Bans, a shearling coat, high-end watch, and he waited for a COVID test. Undercover police, they quietly filled the building. When he stepped outside towards a waiting car, an officer asked him, "Are you Matteo Messina Denaro?" He replied, "You know who I am." No shootout, no chase. After 30 years on the run, Italy's most wanted man was arrested in silence. Patients and doctors, they clapped as he was led away. He was flown by military helicopter to prison and he was placed under total lockdown. No contact with the outside world. His Campobello di Mazzara hideout, a short drive from his hometown, it was found. It was stocked with luxury goods, false IDs. The real Andrea Bonafede and even a doctor who treated him, they were arrested for helping. In prison, he was already dying. He had late stage colon cancer and he kept receiving treatment, but his condition kept getting worse. By September 2023, he was in the prison hospital, weak and barely responsive. He told the guards that illness and not the police are what finally stopped him. On September 25, 2023, he died, aged 61. Before his death, his daughter Lorenza, born during his years in hiding, she visited him and she legally took his name. He was buried quietly in Castelvetrano beside his father. No funeral mass. The church forbids Mafia funerals. Italy called it the end of an era. Matteo Messina Denaro, he was the last Godfather, the final link to the brutal Corleone years. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like stories like this, please follow me on all my social media. I tell these stories all the time. Thank you.